Eric Cott, president of the Cott Consulting Group. You have an interesting professional background. Can you take us through it?
Chris, I would be happy to, and thanks for having me. I began on the fixed income side early in my career, probably when I had hair, and hard for me to remember back to that. But I began as an institutional salesman in the confines of the Amish country, selling bonds, selling stocks, bank stocks to retail investors, to banks, to insurance companies. And then just about the time my daughter was born, I transitioned into the buy side of the business or went over to private client. I joined the Merrill Lynch group in Connecticut, was very, very fortunate. I was able to be fast tracked there to not only manage client assets, but went into a training program there to then become what they call a producing manager or a RM, a resident manager, where you're overseeing advisors in your office, but you're also managing the day-to-day operations. You're out there in the community promoting. Really enjoyed that. Had some really cut my teeth and got great training. Still to this day, Chris, run into and keep in touch with a lot of people. It is amazing to me that people have spent multiple decades at as they used to record, as they used to call it, Mother Merrill. Obviously it's gone through its iterations, Chris, as you know, with Bank of America. And then what happened was during about the financial crisis of '08, left Merrill Lynch, went to be with a Canadian insurance company, did a little bit of wholesaling, and then was really blessed. I was brought on to the Option Clearing Corporation in your fine city of Chicago. I came in there not being a trader, not being a specialist, a market maker, anybody that really had a derivative background. I came in because the Option Clearing Corporation, which still is a not-for-profit, had focused on putting their resources into how do we get advisors, how do we get registered investment advisors, wirehouse folks, independents, anybody in that ecosystem to start to take a look at using option strategies. Not really the esoteric ones, but again, I think one of the reasons that I was hired there, as I said during my interview, it's really a three-legged stool. You're going to look at your client base and say, is there a way for me to earn income? That's a covered call. Is there a way for me to look at protecting it like insurance, a protective put? And lastly, we're going to kind of marry the two together. And we kind of, a lot of us in the industry know about collars where, you're incorporating a call and a put. So in turn, I worked over a decade there, was really fortunate. We launched a accredited course through the former IMCA IMCA, which is now IWI. We ran conferences all over the country. I had events with advisors and ETF providers, institutions at the exchanges. We did many events, New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ. We did one remote in Kansas City at the Bats. And then when 2020 came around with COVID, the world changed, as we all know. I like to joke that COVID never existed in Florida, so things were quite open here. And I've had a couple of different roles. I went to Interactive Brokers. Very lucky to have to join that great organization under Thomas Pettifree, which is a name that a lot of people in the industry know. And in the last few years, have transitioned into some roles where I've worked with some companies in the RIA, ETF, conference space. I had an opportunity with a colleague of mine to run a women's conference, which was really great. And now back to boots on the ground, working with a few clients right now, and ever expanding that interaction. The way that I like to say it, Chris, is I'm in essence like a match.com in the advisor and investment community, bridging that gap between the advisor, which is really the buy side, to the sell side, which is any of the firms that are looking to get their investment, their kind of philosophy, their ideas in front of the right people.
Eric, thank you very much for that, because that's the type of career that I think a lot of people in wealth management maybe have like bits and pieces of experience with, but nothing so comprehensive. And now, speaking of buy side and sell side, what are you are finding as the main concerns or priorities for each of those parties when it comes to deal making?
It's interesting because there is such a energy right now, and I've seen it over the years. First of all, having cut my teeth again almost a decade ago in the derivative space, but really listed options, there were so few opportunities for advisors to go into an investment where, without getting complicated, they didn't have to, get registered to talk to their clients about options. They didn't have to get what's called the ODD, the option disclosure document. Now there are a host of investment firms that are offering various type of products that allow advisors to incorporate those strategies of income protection together. We've all heard a lot about the buffers, the barriers, the collar strategies, the hedged equity. That whole industry is really growing. So I think one of the concerns from advisors is, and I always go back to this because that's kind of what I did for so long, is education. I think it's really, really important for the advisor community to understand it, to feel comfortable with it, be able to convey that message to their client base. Because when you're making an investment recommendation, you want to, understand it as an advisor, having been one, but you also want to know that things don't always go up. You have to kind of, be prepared for that. I think from the sell side with the investment firms, it's the competition. I like to say, when I was sort of in the ETF space, that, and I really am showing my age a little bit here, Chris, because I go back 30 years ago when the SPY was first introduced, and was super, super excited that that kind of investment came around. And kudos to all the folks who have spearheaded the $1 trillion of growth that that industry's had. But I like to say to folks that if you go into your large local public supermarket and you see in the front there Coca-Cola and Pepsi, Frito-Lay, all the major brands, that's sort of like the BlackRock, the Vanguards, and the State Streets. And the other firms, that might be down the aisle, the Van X, the Direction, some of the other ones, the Yield Maxes. You have to find the consumer, the advisor, that is going to pay attention. And then, unfortunately, for all those new issuers, it's as if they're in the back of the supermarket near the 7-day-old meat, or the items that you and I know, we go to the supermarket, that are on clearance. And quite honestly, the consumer doesn't always go to the back of the area there. So you have to find ways to engage and get in front of that audience. And I think the environment right now, and this is maybe a selfish plug for Matt Middleton and Barry Ritholtz and Josh Brown, who are very good friends of mine, the Future Proof Conference. That's a way that they've really kind of figured a way to engage both the buy side and the sell side together in an opportunity where folks can really get to know each other.
I've been to Future Proof. I like it. So to the extent that that's a plug, it's a plug that I stand behind. Now, I'm curious about your view on current product innovations, what you consider to be appropriate, a little too risky, or even things that were once considered too risky that are now considered mainstream. So, for example, crypto. Another thing, active ETFs. And, there are different types of active ETFs, but I'm starting to see ETFs that are like 2x leverage buy, 2x leverage sell for a stock. Like you can get very extreme. You can get to like quantum computing. So for example, quantum computing isn't even a proven technology yet, right? But they're publicly traded and there are multiple ETFs that are like 2x that. And then there's all this Bitcoin stuff, direct or crypto, like direct hold crypto ETF funds. Just what is your view on that appropriateness in the wealth management space, and even like the expertise at the sell side? Do they even understand it really? Are they learning about it? What's your view?
It's a great question. I think that for the crypto side, it kind of came fast and furious, because I remember being in Florida years ago before COVID, hearing the Winklevoss twins talk. And it was as if there were, snickers in the audience. People were saying, boy, this thing is never going to, kind of evolve into anything. It sort of reminds me, I've read two biographies on Elon Musk. It reminds me of the story of Elon Musk, retrofitting a Lotus car to go around and sell, investors, right? What was going to be the most innovative vehicle ever since the Model T. So here we are looking at, and again, to all those in the crypto space, they they got really a gift again with the new president. I think that Trump really understands this. I think a lot of the legislation is really kind of understanding that you want to give the investor public access. Again, it goes back to that education, and it goes back to you have to know your risk tolerance. I think that there is a place in folks' portfolios to incorporate digital currency, crypto, blockchain, all those encompassed within that space. But the most important thing is, and it also holds true with any other investment, is you have to kind of go through where you are in your kind of investment. It's sort of like your landscape, where you're going to be. One of the things I incorporate into that question, Chris, is now we just heard that they're going to allow private equity and private credit, and the door opens up for qualified accounts for a lot of retirement accounts to allow that asset in there. I think that it's a good thing with caution. Again, when it happens so quickly, you and I have seen where folks will run towards what is the hot investment theme, and things can happen. But again, I think that there are barriers in place. Again, my prior employer, the Option Clearing Corporation, I know has gotten involved, in being a central clearing for crypto. I think there are a number of firms that, as they're launching some of these levered products, have made they've made it at the forefront of what they're doing, to make the advisor and the educate and the investor understand, that this isn't something to throw their whole portfolio at. I really think we're at the precipice, Chris, of the hybrid sort of combination of things. Again, a firm in your backyard, and a kudos to some folks there that I know well at Calamos. There's a firm that's launching innovative, buffered Bitcoin, and then you have other firms that are, kind of looking to see how do they combine Bitcoin with fixed income. And, there are, again, a host of other fintech quant firms that are out there that are, running sort of mathematical models that allow institutions and investors to look at their portfolios and kind of give them certain signals of, when is a good time to get in, when's a good time to get out. Again, I have a couple of firms that I'm working with right now that are pretty interesting, that will be at Future Proof. So there's just a real level of excitement, Chris. I mean, you speak to so many people. You do a great job. I mean, I would imagine you could be doing this 24/7, given the amount of folks that are introducing new investment themes. It's exciting. I mean, there were so many periods of time where they kind of counted the ETF, investment, as something that was a fad. And now you see all these major investment companies, folks that you and I have, that we know that, we run into all the time, looking to convert their 40 Act mutual funds into ETFs. So there's going to be a space for all those investments. I'm excited to be in the industry because I just think there's just so much innovation going on, and so much that's available to retail investors. And boy, we didn't even scratch the surface on where some of these firms are, like Robinhood, like Webull, et cetera.
Actually, let's get into that. What is your view on those types of firms and their place between financial advisors, institutions, and clients?
Well, I remember back to my days at Merrill Lynch when they were looking to kind of compete in that against some of the online brokerage firms. And it was a real challenge. And it sort of bifurcated the idea that, are you going into an office to talk to your advisor, Chris, or are you going online to talk to somebody? And it was a bit confusing. Robinhood and the folks there, as well as a number of their competitors, have done a tremendous job at the ease of being able to offer folks under the age of 40. But then there are folks in their 50s like myself and even neighbors of mine in Florida who are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s that are Robinhood investors. So seeing folks that I know at eToro, at Webull, and all these other firms, understanding that making the investor utilize the kind of devices that are available to them that they're on all the time, but making that opportunity of investing, um, you know, more interactive and allowing them to kind of do it at their own pace. I don't think it's going to negate the fact that an advisor is very important in one's financial planning, in one's, kind of overall picture of what am I going to do when I do retire and my children and all the other aspects that come into play. However, to make the younger generation understand the importance of investments and make others that really have not had a interest this kind of onslaught of these firms in the digital landscape is super super exciting. And again, last thing I'll mention on that is the acquisition that Robinhood made, I believe last year with Trade PMR, Rob Baldwin's firm is really going to, I think, open the eyes of a lot of maybe private equity firms and such to look at some of these online firms and see how they can do some marriages between existing RIAs, custodial firms into their platform to expand out those services where they can offer it to folks that just want to sort of trade on their own, that aren't ready yet to engage with an advisor, to then the bigger landscape, which is how do we then go after folks that really want to have that trusted partner like a lawyer or an accountant within their arsenal as they're doing their full scale planning.
Eric, these have been excellent insights. Thank you very much for your time.
Chris, thank you so much.